Lieutenant Choi Do-yun sat alone in the communications room of Earth's Deep Space Monitoring Station. The night shift was always quiet. Most signals from space were just noise, echoes of dead stars and distant galaxies. But tonight, something was different. His screen flickered. A pattern emerged from the static. Not random noise. A message. A human message. Do-yun's fingers moved fast across his keyboard. The signal was weak, broken into pieces, coming from the Kepler system. That was where Earth had built its first research station, beyond the solar system. 12,000 people lived there. Scientists, engineers, families. Children got the audio crackled to life. At first, just static. Then voices, screaming, alarms. And then, clear as morning, a child's voice. A little girl crying, "Mama? Mama, where are you? I'm scared. The ceiling is falling. Mama?" Then silence. Dead, empty silence. Do-yun sat frozen. His hands were shaking. He played the message again. And again. Each time, the same ending. The child's voice. The silence. He checked the time stamp. The message was 6 hours old. Whatever had happened at Kepler Station was already over. He picked up his phone and called his commander. His voice was barely a whisper. "Sir, something terrible has happened." 3 days later, a salvage ship reached what was left of Kepler Station. Dr. B. Kwan led the investigation team. He was Earth's greatest scientist, a man who had spent his life studying the stars with wonder and hope. But when he floated through the wreckage, he felt something new, something dark. The station had been torn apart, not by accident, not by malfunction, by weapons, alien weapons. Juan examined the blast patterns on the metal walls. He studied the radiation signatures. He walked through rooms where families had eaten breakfast together just days ago. Now those rooms were open to space, frozen and silent. He found toys floating in the debris. A stuffed bear. A child's drawing of Earth with the words "My Home" written in clumsy letters. In the command center, he found the station's final log. The commander, a woman named Captain Oh Soo-min, had recorded everything. Her voice was calm, even as explosions shook the station around her. Unknown vessels appeared without warning. We sent peaceful greetings on all frequencies. They did not respond. They simply opened fire. They targeted the civilian quarters first. The school. The hospital. They knew exactly where our children were. A pause. An explosion. If anyone receives this message, please tell Earth. Tell them what happened here. Tell them we did nothing wrong. We only wanted to explore the stars. The recording ended. Juan floated in the destroyed command center for a long time. He thought about his own daughter back on Earth. She was 7 years old. She loved the stars too. He had promised to take her to space someday. Dottie looked at the alien weapon signatures on his scanner. He memorized them. He would never forget them. 2 weeks later, the leaders of every nation on Earth gathered in Geneva. The Great Hall was silent. There were no arguments today. No politics. No borders. Just humans looking at the evidence of what had been done to their people. Admiral Kong Tae-ho stood at the front of the room. He was 60 years old, a man who had spent his life preparing for wars that never came. His face was like stone. His eyes were cold and dark. The attack came from a species called the Korath, he said. His voice was steady. They control a vast empire across this region of the galaxy. They have known about Earth for decades. They consider us primitive, insignificant, like insects. He pressed a button. The recording from Kepler Station played. Captain Oh Soo-min's final words. The explosions. And then, from the communication logs, the child's voice. The little girl calling for her mother. When the recording ended, No one spoke. The President of the United States was crying. The Prime Minister of Japan had his head in his hands. The leader of Russia stared at the ceiling, his jaw tight with rage. The Korath did not warn us, Taeho continued. They did not demand anything. They did not even tell us they were doing it. To them, destroying 12,000 humans was routine, like cleaning dust from a window. They have already forgotten about it. He looked around the room. But we will not forget. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in human history, every nation agreed. Earth would respond. Earth would fight. Dr. Beek-Wan worked for 3 days without sleep. He built a message, a declaration. He translated it into every alien language humans had ever detected. He made sure it would reach every corner of the galaxy. The message was simple. It contained images of Kepler Station before and after. Images of the people who had lived there. Their names. Their faces. Children smiling. Families together. Then the wreckage. The bodies. The silence. And at the end, just words. Human words. You killed our children. We are coming. The message was broadcast into space on every frequency. It traveled at the speed of light in all directions. Within days, it reached the borders of the Korath Dominion. In the great throne room of the Korath homeworld, Overlord Ven sat on his ancient seat of power. He was tall and gray, with 4 arms and eyes that glowed like dying stars. He had ruled the Dominion for 300 years. He had crushed rebellions, conquered worlds, and destroyed species that dared to challenge him. A servant approached with a datapad. Overlord, we have received a message from the primitive world called Earth. Ven took the datapad with mild curiosity. He read the message. He watched the images. He saw the human words at the end, and he laughed. These creatures are amusing, he said. They think they can threaten us? They cannot even leave their own star system. Their ships are made of metal and fire, like children's toys. He deleted the message with a wave of his hand. Forget this. It is nothing. The servant bowed and left. Ven returned to his thoughts. He had more important things to consider. Trade negotiations. Border disputes. The usual business of empire. He had already forgotten about Earth. He had already forgotten about the children who died at Kepler Station. But somewhere across the galaxy, Admiral Kang Taeho had not forgotten. Dr. Beek-Wan had not forgotten. Lieutenant Choi Do-Yun, who still heard that little girl's voice in his dreams, had not forgotten. In the silence of space, something was beginning. Something the Korath could not imagine. Something born from grief and rage and love. Earth was not sleeping. Earth was preparing, and when it was ready, the galaxy would learn an ancient truth that humans had known since the beginning of their history. The truth that had carried them through ice ages and plagues and wars that should have destroyed them. When you hurt a human's family, they do not forget. They do not forgive. They come for you. And they do not stop until it is finished. The stars had never seen anything like humanity before. They were about to learn. 18 months passed. The galaxy moved on. The Korath Dominion continued its business of conquest and trade. Overlord Ven attended ceremonies and signed treaties. The destruction of Kepler Station became a footnote in their records, forgotten among thousands of similar operations. But on Earth, nothing was forgotten. Admiral Kang Taeho stood at the window of his office in Seoul, watching the city below. It was midnight, but the streets were bright with activity. Trucks carried materials to the industrial zones. Workers moved in shifts that never ended. Every factory on the planet was running. Every mine was producing. Every scientist was working. Earth had become a single machine with a single purpose. The old divisions had melted away. Countries that had pointed weapons at each other for generations now shared secrets freely. Russian engineers worked beside American ones. Chinese scientists collaborated with European researchers. The borders on maps still existed, but in people's hearts, they had disappeared. There was only Earth now. Only humanity. Only the mission Dot in his underground laboratory. Dr. Biquan had not slept more than 4 hours a night since Kepler Station. His eyes were red. His hair had turned gray. But his hands were steady as he worked on the project that would change everything. The debris from Kepler Station had contained fragments of the alien weapons. Juan had studied them, learned from them, taken them apart atom by atom. The Korath used a form of energy that humans had only dreamed about. They could bend space itself, traveling between stars in days instead of centuries. Juan had cracked the secret Dot. It had nearly killed him. 3 times his experiments had failed and destroyed his equipment. Once, an explosion had put him in the hospital for 2 weeks. But he had continued. He had to. Every night, he saw the faces of the Kepler victims in his dreams, especially the children. Now, finally, he had succeeded. "It works," he whispered to himself, watching the small prototype engine glow with strange blue light. "We can reach them. We can actually reach them." He called Admiral Tejo immediately. Within hours, the plans were being sent to shipyards around the world. General Shin Yunbai ran the training camps. She was a small woman with short gray hair and eyes that had seen too much war. She had fought in 3 conflicts on Earth and had scars on her body and her soul. But she had never trained soldiers for something like this. Her camps were hidden in deserts and mountains and frozen wastelands. Soldiers from every nation came to her. Young men and women who had volunteered knowing they might never return. She broke them down and built them back up. She taught them to fight in ways no human army had fought before. "The Korath are bigger than us," she told them. "Stronger than us. Their technology is Centauri. Is ahead of ours. On paper, we cannot win." She paused, looking at the rows of exhausted faces. "But we have something they do not have. We have nothing to lose. We have everything to fight for. And we have rage in our hearts that they cannot imagine." She held up a picture. A little girl with pigtails, smiling at the camera. One of the Kepler victims. "This is why we fight. Not for glory. Not for conquest. For her. For all of them. So that no alien power ever thinks they can touch our people again." The soldiers trained harder than any humans had trained before. They learned to fight in zero gravity. They learned to survive on alien worlds. They learned to push their bodies beyond what doctors thought possible. Dot in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter. The fleet was being built. It was the greatest secret in human history. Hundreds of ships, constructed in the darkness of space where no alien eyes could see. The asteroids themselves provided the raw materials. Robot miners worked around the clock, feeding metal and ice to the hungry shipyards. Captain Park Yuna walked through the main construction bay of the hidden base. She was 32 years old, a fighter pilot who had never flown in actual combat. Soon, she would lead a squadron against enemies from another world. She stopped at a viewing window and looked at the ships. They were ugly by galactic standards. No smooth curves or elegant designs. Just brutal angles and heavy armor. Human ships. Built for one purpose. Yuna touched the glass. She thought about her younger sister, Minji. Sweet, brilliant Minji, who had been a teacher at the school on Kepler Station. Who had sent Yuna a message just days before the attack, talking about her students. About how excited they were to live among the stars. Minji's name was on the memorial wall now. All 12,000 names were there. Yuna visited every night. She had memorized her sister's face on that wall until it was burned into her mind. "I'm coming, Minji," she whispered. I'm coming for the ones who took you from me. Across the galaxy, in the halls of the Galactic Assembly, Ambassador Lyse reviewed the reports from her intelligence networks. Lyse was not Korath. Her species, the Ventai, were observers and diplomats. They watched the galaxy and tried to keep peace between its many powers. Something about the human transmission bothered her. She had studied thousands of species, learned their languages and customs and psychologies. The human message was different from anything she had seen before. Most species, when threatened, sent warnings full of boasts and exaggerations. They talked about their power, their weapons, their invincibility. The humans had done none of this. They had simply shown their dead and made a promise. You killed our children. We are coming. No boasting. No threats. Just cold, absolute certainty. Lyse traveled to the Korath homeworld and requested a meeting with Fleet Marshal Tor, the Dominion's military commander. He was old and experienced, a veteran of dozens of wars. I wanted to warn you about the humans, she said. Tor seemed amused. The primitives? They are nothing. Their planet is barely civilized. They have no fleet, no weapons, no experience. What could they possibly do to us? I do not know, Lyse admitted. But their message contained something I have never seen before. Emotional markers that my translators could not fully process. Something beyond anger, beyond hatred. It was like looking into a fire that will never stop burning. Tor waved his hand dismissively. You worry too much, Ambassador. The humans will forget their anger. They will return to their little planet and their little lives. They have no choice. But as Lyse left, she noticed something in Tor's eyes. Just for a moment. A flicker of uncertainty dot on Earth. The day finally came. The fleet was ready. 300 warships. 50,000 soldiers. The greatest military force humanity had ever assembled. Admiral Kang Tai-ho stood on the bridge of the flagship, the U.S. Remembrance. He looked at the view screen, showing Earth one last time. The blue and green planet that had given birth to his species. The home they were leaving to protect. All ships, he said into the fleet-wide channel. Begin launch sequence. There were no cheers. No celebrations. The crews worked in silence. They knew what they were doing. They knew many of them would not return back on Earth. Billions of people watched the sky as the fleet departed. They did not wave or shout. They stood in silence, in parks and rooftops and beaches around the world. Families held each other. Children looked up at the stars. A mother and soul held her son close and whispered, "Bring them back. Please bring them back." The fleet entered faster than light speed and vanished from human eyes. They were gone. The war had begun. In his throne room, Overlord Ven received a report about unusual energy signatures near the Korath border. He did not bother to read it. He would regret that decision for the rest of his life. Station Prime was the largest Korath military outpost on the edge of their empire. It floated in the darkness of space like a metal mountain, surrounded by patrol ships and defense platforms. Thousands of Korath soldiers lived there. It was the base from which the attack on Kepler Station had been launched. Commander Drath sat in the control room, bored. Nothing ever happened at Station Prime. The border was quiet. The primitive species nearby had learned long ago not to challenge the Dominion. His job was easy. Too easy. Then his sensor officer made a strange sound. Something between confusion and disbelief. Commander, we have contacts. Multiple contacts. Coming out of faster-than-light travel. Drath looked at the screen. His 4 eyes widened. Ships were appearing in space around Station Prime. Hundreds of them. They were ugly, brutal things. No elegance. No beauty. just sharp angles and thick armor covered with weapons. "What species is this?" Drath demanded. "I do not recognize these designs." The sensor officer's voice was shaking. "Sir, based on the energy signatures and communication frequencies, they appear to be human." "Human?" Drath laughed. "That is impossible. Humans cannot travel faster than light. They are primitives. This must be a trick." But the ships kept coming. More and more of them, filling the space around Station Prime like a swarm of angry insects. A message came through on all frequencies. A human voice, speaking in perfect Korath language. "This is Admiral Kang Tae-ho of the United Earth Fleet. You are the ones who attacked Kepler Station. You killed 12,000 innocent people, including children. We have come to deliver our response." Drath felt the first cold touch of fear in his stomach, but he pushed it away. These were just primitives. They could not possibly challenge the might of the Korath Dominion. "Send 3 destroyers," he ordered. "Scare them away. Do not waste ammunition on these animals." 3 Korath destroyers moved toward the human fleet. They were beautiful ships, sleek and deadly, each one capable of destroying a small planet. Their captains were confident. This would be over quickly. On the bridge of the Remembrance, Admiral Tae-ho watched the approaching destroyers with cold eyes. Beside him, his tactical officer reported their movements. "They are sending only 3 ships, Admiral. They do not take us seriously." "They will learn," Tae-ho said softly. He opened the fleet channel. "All ships weapons-free. Leave none alive." What happened next would be studied by military historians across the galaxy for centuries. The human ships fired first. Not with energy weapons like the Korath expected, but with kinetic projectiles. Chunks of metal accelerated to nearly the speed of light by electromagnetic rails. The Korath shields, designed to absorb energy, could not stop solid objects moving at such impossible speeds. The first destroyer was cut in half before its captain could even give an order. The second tried to turn and flee, but human missiles found it. Not energy missiles, nuclear missiles. The explosion lit up space like a new sun. The third destroyer managed to fire back. Its weapons hit 2 human ships, destroying them instantly. But then something happened that the Korath had never seen before. A damaged human cruiser, its engines failing and its crew dying, turned toward the third destroyer. It accelerated directly at the Korath ship. The destroyer tried to move, but it was too slow. The human ship rammed it at full speed. Both vessels exploded together. Commander Drath stared at his screen in horror. His 3 destroyers, some of the finest ships in the Dominion fleet, had been destroyed in 11 minutes. And the humans had sacrificed their own ship deliberately. They had killed themselves to kill his people. What kind of creatures did this? "Send everything," he ordered, his voice no longer calm. "All ships, all weapons. Destroy them all." The Battle of Station Prime lasted 4 hours. It was not a battle. It was a slaughter. The Korath had better technology, better ships, better weapons. But the humans did not fight like any enemy they had ever faced. Human pilots flew directly into Korath formations, firing until their ships were destroyed, and then ramming their enemies with the wreckage. Human soldiers in damaged ships put on spacesuits, strapped explosives to their bodies, and jumped onto Korath vessels, detonating themselves inside enemy hangars. They did not retreat. They did not surrender. They did not even try to survive. They only wanted to kill. Captain Park Yuna led her fighter squadron through the chaos of battle. Her small ship danced between explosions and weapons fire. She had already destroyed 5 enemy fighters. Her squadron had lost half its pilots. She did not slow down. "All fighters, follow me," she said into her radio. "We are going inside the station." Her remaining pilots did not hesitate. They foe. Load her through the station's damaged hangar doors, landing in the middle of enemy territory. Yuna climbed out of her fighter with a rifle in her hands. Around her, Korath soldiers were scrambling, confused by the humans who had suddenly appeared in their home. She started shooting Dot as she moved through the corridors. She activated the station's communication system. Her voice echoed through every room, every hallway, every chamber. "Can you hear me, Korath? I am Captain Park Yuna of Earth. 18 months ago, you attacked a station called Kepler. You killed 12,000 people. You killed my sister. Her name was Minji. She was a teacher. She loved her students. She was kind and gentle, and she never hurt anyone." Yuna kicked open a door and shot 2 soldiers who were hiding inside. She kept walking. Her voice remained calm. "Where are your children, Korath? Are they safe? Are they sleeping peacefully tonight?" Ours were not. Ours died screaming. Ours called for their mothers, while your weapons tore through their walls. By the time Yuna reached the command center, Commander Drath was alone. His soldiers had fled or died. He sat in his chair, staring at the human woman who had invaded his station. "What do you want?" he asked. "Territory? Resources? Name your price. The Dominion will pay." Yuna looked at him for a long moment. Then she raised her rifle. "I want my sister back. Can you give me that?" She pulled the trigger. When the battle ended, Station Prime was a ruin. The Korath forces had been completely destroyed. The human fleet had lost 42 ships and 3,000 soldiers. Admiral Tejo ordered their names recorded. Every single one. Dr. B. Kwan, who had watched the battle from the flagship, prepared a message. He collected footage from every ship, every camera, every sensor. The ramming attacks, the suicide charges, the pilots who flew into certain death without hesitation. He broadcast the footage to every corner of the galaxy, along with simple words. "This is what happens when you touch Earth." In the throne room of the Korath homeworld, Overlord Ven finally paid attention. He watched the footage in silence. He saw his ships destroyed by primitive weapons. He saw humans dying and taking his soldiers with them. He saw a species that did not know how to give up. "This is impossible," he whispered. "They should not be able to do this. They are primitives." Fleet Marshal Tor stood beside him, his face pale. "Overlord, I have studied 1,000 species in my career. I have fought wars against dozens of enemies. I have never seen anything like this. They do not fight for territory or power. They fight because we made them hate us. And I do not think they will stop until we are all dead." For the first time in 300 years of rule, Overlord Ven felt something cold and terrible growing in his chest. He did not recognize it. He had never felt it before. It was fear. Across the galaxy, Ambassador Lies watched the same footage. She remembered her warning to Fleet Marshal Tor, the fire that would never stop burning. Now the galaxy could see it for themselves, and in the ships of the human fleet, as they prepared for the next battle, soldiers whispered a new phrase to each other. A promise. A prayer. For Kepler. For Earth. For the children. The war was just beginning. The war spread like fire through dry grass. After Station Prime, the human fleet did not stop. They pushed deeper and deeper into Korath territory, attacking military bases and supply lines, freeing enslaved species, and destroying everything that served the Dominion's war machine. Overlord Ven mobilized the full power of his empire. He called back fleets from distant corners of the galaxy. He ordered weapons factories to work day and night. He promised rewards for any captain who brought him a human prisoner. None ever did. The humans did not surrender. They fought until death, and often beyond it. The siege of Nova Reach became legend. Nova Reach was the Korath's largest military stronghold. A fortress planet surrounded by defense stations and a fleet of 300 warships. It was supposed to be unbreakable. Military experts across the galaxy agreed that even a force twice its size could not capture it. Admiral Kong Tae-ho did not try to capture it. He had a different plan. For 2 weeks, his fleet stayed at the edge of the system, just watching. The Korath commanders grew nervous. What were the humans waiting for? They sent scouts, but the human ships did not react. They simply waited. Then, without warning, strange objects appeared on the Korath sensors. Large objects moving at incredible speed toward Novareach, not ships. Something else. Asteroids, dozens of them. Huge chunks of rock and ice, pulled from the outer system and accelerated to faster than light speed. That is impossible, the Korath defense commander said, staring at his screen. No one can move asteroids through faster than light travel. The energy required would be enormous. But the humans had done it. The asteroids hit Novareach like the fists of angry gods. The defense stations were smashed. The orbiting fleet was scattered. The planet's surface was scarred by impacts that created new craters visible from space. It was brutal. It was primitive. It was devastating. After the bombardment, the human fleet moved in to finish what remained. And on the surface, General Shin Yunbai led her soldiers into the chaos. The Korath expected conventional warfare. Lines of soldiers. Clear battles. Rules of engagement. They got none of this. Yunbai's troops fought like ghosts. They attacked at night, in the rain, in the underground tunnels that connected Korath cities. They set traps and ambushes. They disappeared before the enemy could respond, and appeared somewhere else, striking again. How do they keep fighting? A Korath officer asked his superiors after his unit was attacked for the 3rd time in one night. They do not sleep. They do not rest. They just keep coming. What the Korath did not understand was simple. Humans were endurance hunters. Their ancestors had chased prey across the plains of Africa for days without stopping, waiting for the animals to collapse from exhaustion. That ancient patience, that terrible persistence, was written into their blood. They could outlast anything. As the war continued, something unexpected began to happen across the Dominion. Other species, ones who had been conquered and enslaved by the Korath for generations, saw the human victories. They watched the footage of humans fighting and dying and never giving up, and they started to hope. On a mining world called Veth Prime, the slave workers stopped working. When the Korath guards tried to force them back to the mines, they fought back with mining tools and bare hands. They shouted human words they had learned from the broadcasts. For the children. For freedom. On a dozen other worlds, similar rebellions began. The Dominion, stretched thin by the war with Earth, could not put them all down. The empire that had seemed eternal was beginning to crack. Fleet Marshal Tor stood before Overlord Ven in the throne room, his face tired and gray. "We are losing, Overlord. Not just the war. We are losing our empire. The humans have shown the galaxy that we can be beaten. Every species we conquered is now wondering if they should try to break free." Ven's 4 hands gripped his throne. "Then we must destroy the humans completely. Send everything we have. Earn their planet. End this." Tor shook his head slowly. "You do not understand. Even if we destroy Earth tomorrow, it will not matter. The humans have already won something greater than this war. They have given the galaxy an idea. The idea that the Korath can be defied. That idea will never die." He looked at Ven with ancient, weary eyes. "I warned you, Overlord. You cannot defeat hatred with ships. You cannot kill an idea with weapons. We made an enemy that will haunt us for eternity." Captain Park Yuna had fought in 17 battles since Station Prime. She had lost friends, pilots she had trained with, soldiers she had commanded. Each death added weight to her heart, but she did not slow down. She could not. Her sister's face was always with her. Minji, smiling in photographs. Minji, writing letters about her students. Minji, who had never hurt anyone, dying in fire and silence because an alien empire thought human lives were worthless. The battle at the Korath supply station should have been routine. A small target, lightly defended. Yuna's carrier and 2 escort ships were more than enough, but the Korath had set a trap. Hidden fleet emerged from behind a nearby moon. 20 warships against 3 human vessels. The carrier's captain ordered an immediate retreat, but their engines were damaged in the first exchange out, and then the sensors detected something else. A civilian ship drifting between the fleets. Not human, not Korath. A transport vessel carrying refugees from one of the rebelling worlds. 300 alien civilians, including children, trying to escape to freedom. The Korath were moving to intercept it. They would not let witnesses to their cruelty escape. All fighters launch, Yuna commanded without hesitation. We protect that transport. Her pilots followed her into the storm of enemy fire. They were outnumbered 10 to 1. They flew anyway. The battle was chaos. Human fighters darted between massive Korath warships, drawing fire away from the refugee transport. Yuna shot down ship after ship, her hands steady, her heart pounding. One by one, her pilots fell. Their voices disappeared from the radio. Soon, only Yuna was left. The carrier was burning. Its captain called her on a crackling channel. Yuna, we are abandoning ship. The transport is almost clear. You can retreat. You have done enough. Yuna looked at her sensors. The transport was slow. The Korath would catch it before it could escape. Unless someone bought more time. I am not retreating, she said quietly. Tell Admiral Tejo it was an honor to serve. Tell him I kept my promise. She flew her damaged fighter directly at the lead Korath warship. Its weapons fired at her, tearing pieces from her ship, but she did not turn. She accelerated Dot at the last moment. She activated her radio one more time. Her voice was calm, almost peaceful. Minji, I am coming to see you now. Wait for me. Her fighter hit the Korath ship's bridge at full speed. The explosion destroyed the warship completely and damaged 2 others nearby. The Korath fleet hesitated. Confused by the loss of their commander Dot, it was enough time. The refugee transport escaped to safety. 300 lives saved. Admiral Kang Tejo received the report in his quarters late that night. He sat alone in the darkness, holding a photograph of his officers. Yuna's face smiled up at him, young and determined. He picked up a pen and added her name to a list. A long list, growing longer every day. The names of everyone who had died in this war. I will read your name when we reach their homeworld, he promised the empty room. They will know you. They will remember what they cost us. Outside his window, the stars burned cold and distant. The war was not over. The hardest battle was still to come, but humanity would not stop. Could not stop. Not until the last Korath leader understood what they had done. Not until the debt was paid. 3 years after the war began. The human fleet arrived at the Korath homeworld. The citizens looked up at their sky and saw darkness. Human ships blocked out the stars. Hundreds of them, floating in orbit like a judgment from the universe itself. For generations, the Korath had conquered others. Now, for the first time, they were the ones under siege. Panic spread through the cities. Families ran to shelters. Soldiers abandoned their posts. The mighty Korath Dominion, which had ruled this region of the galaxy for 1,000 years, was paralyzed by fear. In his throne room, Overlord Ven sat alone. His advisors had fled. His generals were dead or captured. His empire had collapsed around him like a house built on sand. He had never imagined this was possible. Humans were supposed to be primitive, weak, insignificant. They were supposed to accept their place beneath the great powers of the galaxy. Instead, they had crossed the stars. They had burned his fleets. They had freed his slaves. And now they were here, above his world, deciding his fate. A message came through on his personal communicator. A human voice, cold and calm. Overlord Ven, this is Admiral Kang Tae-ho of the United Earth Fleet. I am coming down to speak with you. If you attempt to harm me, my fleet will begin bombardment of your cities immediately. Do you understand? Ven's voice was barely a whisper. I understand. 1 hour later, a small human shuttle landed in the courtyard of the Korath Palace. Admiral Tae-ho stepped out alone. He wore no armor. He carried no weapons. He walked through the ancient halls of the palace with steady steps, his eyes taking in the golden walls and towering statues. Korath guards watched him pass, their weapons ready. But no one fired. They had seen what humans could do. They had no desire to test this man. Tae-ho entered the throne room. Overlord Ven sat on his ancient seat, trying to maintain some dignity. But his 4 hands were trembling. His glowing eyes were dull with despair. Human, Ven said, you have come to kill me. No, Tae-ho replied. He stopped in the center of the room and looked at the alien ruler. I have come to make you understand. He pulled out a small datapad from his coat. The same kind of device any human might carry. Nothing special. Nothing threatening. Before I say anything else, you will listen. You will listen to every word. You will not speak until I am finished. Ven nodded slowly. Tae-ho activated the datapad, and he began to read. Kim Soo-young, age 34, botanist. She was growing the first flowers in space. Ven blinked, confused. What was this? Han Jae-min, age 8, student. He wanted to be an astronaut. The admiral's voice continued, steady and relentless. Yu Mi-rae, age 41, doctor. She had saved over 1,000 lives in her career. Park Min-ji, age 29, teacher. Her students loved her more than anyone else on the station. Name after name, age after age, job after job. 12,000 people, each one spoken aloud, each one given weight and meaning. Each one made real. Took 4 hours. Tae-ho did not stop. His voice never wavered. Ven was forced to sit and listen to every single name. The name of every person his empire had killed at Kepler Station. When the last name was read, the throne room was silent. Ven's eyes were wet. He did not know why. His species did not cry. But something inside him had broken. Those were not numbers, Tae-ho said quietly. They were not insects to be cleaned away. They were people. They had families, dreams, lives. You took all of that away. You did not even think about it. You forgot about them before their bodies were cold. He put the datapad back in his coat. We came across the galaxy to make sure you never forget again. Ven finally found his voice. It was weak and shaking. What will you do to us? Will you destroy our cities? Kill our people? We have children too. Will you take them from us as we took yours? The question hung in the air. Admiral Tae-ho was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was heavy with exhaustion and sorrow and something else. Something that sounded almost like mercy. We could burn your world. We could kill every Korath in the galaxy. We have the power. We have the right. You gave us that right when you murdered our children. He stepped closer to Ven, close enough to touch. But we will not. because that would make us like you. And we did not cross the stars to become monsters. We came to end the ones who made us. Tae-ho turned away from the Overlord and walked toward a window. He looked out at the Korath city, where millions of alien beings were waiting in terror for their judgment. Your empire is finished. Your military will be dismantled. Your war criminals will face trial by an alliance of every species you ever conquered. The slaves you kept will be freed. The worlds you stole will govern themselves. He paused. But we will not take your homeworld. We will not take your children. We will not do to you what you did to us. That is our judgment. Not revenge. Justice. There is a difference. Ven stared at the human's back. He did not understand. Why? We killed your people. We deserve death. Tae-ho did not turn around. His voice was quiet, but strong. A great human once said that an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. Another said that darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. We have been fighting in darkness for 3 years. We have lost people we loved. We have done terrible things to survive. But we will not let this war turn us into something evil. He finally turned to face Ven. You wanted to know what kind of species we are. This is your answer. We are the species that could destroy you completely and chose not to. Remember that. Tell your children. Tell your grandchildren. Tell them that humanity came to your world with the power of gods and the anger of demons, and we chose mercy. Not because you deserved it, because we did. The war ended that day. The Korath Dominion was dissolved. Its leaders faced justice for their crimes. The species they had enslaved built new nations of their own. A new galactic order emerged, one where no single empire could dominate the others. Humanity took nothing. No territory. No tribute. No slaves. They only asked for one thing, a promise. A promise that no species would ever again attack civilians. No species would ever target children. No species would ever forget that actions have consequences. The galaxy agreed. They had no choice. They had seen what humanity could do when it was angry. They never wanted to see it again. 2 years after the war ended, Lieutenant Choi Do-yun stood at the rebuilt Kepler station. He was a commander now, responsible for the memorial that had been built there. A garden under a glass dome, where flowers from Earth grew in alien soil. The names of the victims were carved in gold on a great wall. Do-yun walked along it slowly, touching some of the names. People he had never met, but would never forget. Captain Park Yuna's name was there too, added after her sacrifice. A hero of the war. A sister who kept her promise. Children ran through the garden, laughing. Human children and alien children playing together. The sons and daughters of the species humanity had freed. They did not know about war. They only knew about friendship and wonder and the beauty of the stars. Dr. Yun smiled as he watched them. This was why they had fought. This was what victory really looked like far away in the great hall of the new Galactic Assembly. Ambassador Lees addressed the representatives of 100 species. She was old now, tired from years of diplomacy and peace-building. But her voice was still strong. Many of you have asked me about the humans, she said. You have asked why they did not destroy the Korath when they had the chance. Why they showed mercy to an enemy that had shown them none. She paused, remembering a conversation from long ago. I asked their admiral the same question. He said something I still think about every day. He said, revenge is easy. Mercy is strength. She looked around the hall at the faces of beings from across the galaxy. I have studied 1,000 species in my long life. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have witnessed great cruelty and great kindness. But I have never been more impressed by any species than I am by humanity. Her voice grew quiet, almost reverent. And I have never been more afraid of them, because they have something no other species has. They can look into the darkness of their own hearts and choose to turn away. They can hold the power to destroy everything and decide to build instead. She stood up straighter, her final words echoing through the hall. Do not make an enemy of Earth, not because they will destroy you, but because they will make you face what you have done. They will show you the weight of your sins. And then they will show you that a better way is possible. That is far more terrifying than any weapon. The assembly was silent for a long time, and somewhere out in the galaxy, on a blue and green planet called Earth, children looked up at the stars and dreamed of peace. The war was over, but the lesson would never be forgotten.